Venom introduced us to a few of Marvel's most popular symbiotes, like Venom, Riot, Scream, and Phage, and while these symbiotes were impressive, Venom is going to be joined by much stronger aliens in the sequel. The plot is being kept under wraps, but the film's main villains may have already been revealed. One of them is an incredibly dangerous symbiote, and the other enhances people's darkest desires. Sounds like a terrific match, right? But don't worry if you haven't brushed up on your symbiote science. We at The Binger are here to break down the most epic aliens and villains set to appear in Venom 2. Of course, our favorite symbiote is going to be back for the sequel, but we can expect him to be a changed alien this time around. Producer Matt Tolmack told Cinema Blend that the sequel will focus on the relationship between Eddie and Venom. You're probably thinking, didn't the first movie already do that? But while the first movie focused on Eddie and Venom trying to find common ground and unify, the sequel will be about the pair trying to stop themselves from giving into their darker tendencies, especially when they're faced with criminals who will do anything to tempt their violent urges. The start of the film will likely find Eddie trying to build his life back up, while Venom finds a place for himself in the human world. Now that the pair is cooperating more and has agreed to keep the violence directed towards bad guys, Venom's destructive ways are going to have to find other outlets. Thankfully, Venom 2 has already set up a huge villain for Venom to go up against, and he just so happens to be Venom's alien offspring. Woody Harrelson will be taking on the role of Cletus Cassidy, a deranged criminal who bonds with the violent symbiote Carnage. Venom teased his inclusion in the sequel by giving him his own end credit scene. The scene features Eddie Brock being sent to interview Cletus in prison. Cletus promises Eddie, and us, that soon there will be carnage. And indeed there will be. Woody Harrelson has been seen on set in a red wig that's much nicer than the curly monstrosity he wore in the end credit scene. And while his wig and Hawaiian shirts aren't exactly intimidating, Cletus is definitely not someone you want to mess with, especially when he and Carnage become friends. In the comics, Carnage is the spawn of Venom, who leaves behind the symbiote when Eddie Brock is breaking out of prison. Eddie isn't in prison in Venom, but perhaps the symbiote will get left behind while Eddie's busy interviewing Cletus. Carnage is actually stronger than Venom and any of the symbiotes we saw in the first film. He has up stats like being even faster, stronger, and more agile than his father. He also has the abilities to create weapons, and of course those creepy tendrils of doom that can snake out and take down his foes. But what makes Carnage extra dangerous is how much he wants to destroy things, and those violent urges are amplified by how much Cletus loves chaos. Cletus had a pretty messed up childhood. He was attacked by his mother, who was then taken out by his father, and then he lied about it so that his father got the electric chair. And that was only the beginning of a life of crime and mayhem for Cletus. Even so, the Psycho was still able to find love with another maniacal supervillain. We'll get to her a little bit later. Carnage being in Venom 2 means that there's definitely going to be more violence this time around. Though the film didn't receive the go-ahead for the R rating it was going for, producer Avi Arad has assured us that it's not necessary. Showing off Carnage as a terrifying villain will be all about motivation and what's going on inside Cletus's messed up brain. For now, we'll trust them that Carnage will be terrifying, even in PG-13 format. But let us know in the comments if you think Venom 2 would be better with that R rating. Venom focused on a lot of the comics' most popular symbiotes, even if they aren't the strongest. But now that Carnage is being introduced to the cinematic world, some of his offspring are bound to make an appearance. Venom and Carnage have various alien offspring throughout the comics. One of Carnage's most powerful children is Ray's. He has more powers than most of Carnage's other children and is definitely more powerful than Venom's kids. Ray's is capable of shape-shifting parts of its body into claws, fangs, tentacles, and blades, but Ray's skills go far beyond physical strength. In the comics, Ray's bonds with FBI agent Claire Dixon. This results in Ray's becoming as strategically powerful as he is physically powerful. Claire's brain is full of classified information and vigorous detective training. This means that Ray's can worm his way into pretty much anything, and posing as an FBI agent definitely helps the symbiote stay a step ahead of everyone else. Ray's hasn't appeared that much in the comics, so the film could really get creative with his character. He might not make an appearance until the end of the film, but we think that Venom 2 will definitely want to include a symbiote like him. An all-out battle between Carnage and Venom's symbiote offspring would make for an epic climax. And we know of another Carnage offspring that could really turn the tables if an all-out alien war breaks loose. Not all of Carnage's children decided to go the chaotic route. Another one of his most powerful offspring is Scorn, and she was actually enlisted by the United States government to help take down her alien father. Scorn's host, Tanis Neves, was a psychiatrist before the symbiote bonded with her. The alien actually grew out of her prosthetic arm, resulting in her being part robot. This gives her some interesting abilities like being able to modify technology and even possess technological objects. One of Scorn's most unique skills is her ESP, which is similar to Spider-Man's spider sense. This also means she's immune to the web-slinger's senses. All of these skills combine to make Scorn one of the symbiotes who's been able to defeat Carnage in the comics. She accomplished the task of separating Carnage from his host, but she actually needed the help of the next villain on our list. Scorn is less likely to appear in Venom 2 than Ray's because she would probably need a huge story arc. and we'd probably know who is playing Tannis by now, but the character would be the perfect option for an end credits teaser for the third film, especially if Carnage is still at large by the time the movie wraps up. No, she's not a symbiote, but Shriek will be joining Venom 2 alongside Carnage to wreak some otherworldly havoc. Her particular set of skills is going to make symbiote controls a lot more toxic. Oh, and did we mention she's Cletus's girlfriend? Bond girl Naomi Harris will be taking on the role of the Super Banshee. In addition to her sonic beam sound waves that enable her to fly and attack her enemies, Shriek is capable of dark empathy. This power allows her to entice people to bring out their darkest desires. This can result in mass crime and violence. What better environment for a destruction-hungry symbiote? In the comics, Shriek and Cletus pursue a romantic relationship, but she's also forced by Scorn to use her sonic beam on Carnage, which results in him separating from his house and Shriek ending up in a coma. The Scorn and Shriek team up would make for an epic plot point in Venom 3, but in the sequel, it's more likely that Shriek's origin story will be explored. The villain's real name is Frances Barrison. After a tough childhood, she turned to the life of crime. She meets Cletus while they're both incarcerated at the Ravencroft Institute. When Carnage breaks out, he takes her with him and they begin a criminal joyride all over the city. In the comics, they also team up with Demogoblin, Doppelganger, and Carrion. Then they form a weird supervillain family with Carnage and Shriek taking on the roles of father and mother to their criminal sons. It's possible that this villainous trio might make an appearance in Venom 2 alongside their sinister mentors. We saw her in the first film, and Michelle Williams has promised she'll be back as Eddie Brock's ex-wife, Anne Weying. But even better than that, she's expressed her desire to have she-venom take center stage. We already got to see she-venom make out with Eddie Brock, but when Venom transfers over to Anne, a whole lot of action is about to go down. In the comics, Venom brings out some very dark desires in Anne that she didn't even know she had. In the films, she's not as used to having Venom team up with her as Eddie is. This means she's not so good at resisting violent urges. If the sequel sees them team up once again to take on Carnage, it's entirely possible that Anne might go down a path that's difficult to come back from. She-Venom has the same powers as normal Venom, primarily shapeshifting, webbing, and super strength, but Venom might decide to jump over to Anne if Eddie is holding him back too much while he's trying to take on Carnage. We know that Eddie doesn't want to go down a dark path with Venom and do things he can't forgive himself for, but Anne? If she's anything like comic book Anne, she might not be able to help herself. Well, he's not a symbiote either. We can't help but mention the very real possibility that Spider-Man, who is tangled with symbiotes quite a few times in the comics and even in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man films, is likely to make a crossover into Venom's territory. Venom director Ruben Fleischer said that a confrontation between the two is where it's all going to lead. But now that Fleischer is out and Andy Serkis is directing the sequel, does that mean that all hope for a Spider-Man appearance is lost? Definitely not. First of all, his existence in Marvel's so-called Dark Universe has been pretty much confirmed by the new Morbius trailer. Spider-Man graffiti appears on a wall and the text on top suggests that Spider-Man Far From Home precedes the events of Morbius. It hints at the aftermath of Peter Parker being accused of criminal activity by Mysterio as society starts to turn on the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Since a Morbius and Venom crossover has been teased, the web-slinger's appearance in the trailer suggests that Venom is also coming close to acknowledging the superhero's existence. Tom Holland must be pumped that he could appear in not 2 but 3 major franchises: Spider-Man, the Avengers, and Venom. The second piece of evidence comes from Marvel bosses Kevin Feige, who simply said that a crossover was likely. If Feige is willing to give it the go-ahead, then we don't see how Venom 2 would give up this opportunity. Spider-Man probably won't play a major part in Venom 2, but let's not rule out a cameo that could set up his appearance in Venom 3. Venom 2 only started filming in February, so it'll be a while before we get a trailer. The film is set for an October 2nd release date, so in the next few months we can be assured that more on-set photos and teasers will be released. Fingers crossed that even more powerful symbiotes will show up in the new film. And maybe Eddie and his symbiote pal will even have to make a trek to space to get some backup when they take on Carnage. And if Venom 2 does really well, we can expect the stakes to be up from here. Maybe we'll even get to see insane symbiotes like Bizarnage, Anti-Venom, and Red Goblin. Or what about Venomsaurus Rex? The possibilities are endless.
When I get out of here, and I will, there's gonna be carnage.
What symbiote are you most looking forward to seeing in Venom 2? And what non-alien villains do you want to see appear in the film? Let us know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to The Binger. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.